Welcome. This is Rachel over at Moonlight Library, and I'm here to give you the levels of horror. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. If you are not new here, then welcome back. I am so excited to have you. I'm holding a lighter right now. Let's light our candles. Okay, so levels of horror. It's kind of like what I'm thinking is a recommendation tier system to say how horrific books are. The books that I'm recommending, from least scary to scariest. We'll have 10 levels. We're rising up the ranks of the underworld together. Anywho, it's kind of like Hot Ones, so let's get into it. Level 1, not so scary, more fun. That's what I'm thinking. Fun horror. That's where we're starting. Not disturbing, maybe a little bit. Because it's a horror, it's gonna be a little disturbing. I don't have the silliest horrors in the world. We have Horns by Joe Hill. This is a backbone key horror for me, a starter horror for me. I had not read much horror before I read Horns by Joe Hill. This is Stephen King's son. Hilarious. It is about this guy who wakes up one day with horns on his head, and whenever people are looking at him, they have to tell him the truth. About a year earlier, I believe, his girlfriend has been murdered, and so he kind of ends up trying to figure out what happened to his girlfriend, and it is weird, it is kind of silly, kind of crazy, and altogether wonderful. So I would definitely recommend this to any newbie horror person, or if you haven't read it and you want just a little bit lighter. Like I don't remember it being the scariest thing. So we're gonna start with Horns. Level 2. It's still a little silly. It's still a little ridiculous. It's definitely scary, and 100% has some gross outs. That is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. We have our main characters, I think it's Louise. Yeah, Louise and Mark. Their parents have just died in a tragic accident, and they have to sell their parents' house. They get there and it's a little bit haunted, and not haunted by just nothing. Puppets, scary toys, childhood things. Oh my god, horrific. There are like 2 moments in this book that I was like, ugh, you know? I don't know if originally I was like, this book should maybe go a little further, but like down, but I feel like it didn't hit a point of extreme terror for me. It was more so a fun horror book. Like in the end, it's just kind of funny because maybe it's because I'm not afraid of toys. So maybe that didn't help, but it was like a 5-star read. All of these are, I believe, 5-star reads. Yeah, here we go. Now we're getting into the spooky. This one is not so funny, not so silly, and kind of disturbing depending on what you're okay with. And that is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. I feel like I heard a lot of people, because of the blood content, because this is a vampire novel, and the talking about blood and the like exsanguation, I shouldn't say that word. I don't know how to say it. Anyways, there's like dead animals and like opening up dead animals and stuff like that. So it's a little disturbing, but it is beautifully written. It has a haunting atmosphere. We are following in a kind of fantastical, like fantasy-esque place, this girl who is kind of living in poverty, and if she goes to the north, she can become a blood maid, and she gets accepted to do this, and she ends up going up north, becoming a blood maid, and that is going to give her the money to be able to escape poverty. And so she lives. I'm like, what is the sound behind me? It's this thing. Oh my god, it scared me. Oh my god, level 3 horror. So we're following her escape from poverty, basically, and it is beautifully done and horrific and scary, and I love it, but not the scariest thing I've read. So I think what makes something scarier to me is when we add in the psychological, because this is all opinion based on what I think is scary. Because for some person, that blood stuff or like the puppets would be the scariest thing you could possibly dream of. But for me, that's not it. Psychological. Because number 4, level 4, we have We Spread by Iain Reid. And this one goes deep, like, delves deep inside of the mind and the terrors of what is reality, basically. We have this older woman, Penny. She has been living on her own. She is, well, like in her 80s, 90s. Her partner has passed away a while ago. And she ends up having a big fall happen to her, and the person who kind of helps care for her a little bit is like, we have to move you to the retirement home that your husband or your partner picked out for you. And we're just inside of her mind, and it is crazy. I can't really tell you much because it gives it away, but the way it makes your head spiral as her head spirals, and the stuff she is witnessing is just like mind-boggling, bending. And if you've read I'm Thinking of Ending Things, you get it if you haven't read this one. But I think they're both 4-level tier for me out of this ranking system. So up to the 5th level. Oh my god. I just finished this book, Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. This book, it makes you afraid of humanity a little bit. This follows a number of survivors of sexual assault, men who are sexually assaulted by a serial, like a sexual assaulter. I don't know if I can say the R word on YouTube, so I'm not going to say it. Anyways, so a serial sexual assaulter who has been escaping everything. It's told in so many different ways, like from email communication to poetry to IMs to just like questionnaires to everything. It's beautifully written, but it showcases the terrors of humanity and the fears and just the way that people spin things. And oh my god, there's just scenes in this book that you're just like, also I couldn't stop crying. It was a very emotional book for me. It was probably one of the best books I've read this year, hands down. So that's level 5 horror, because it just really cut deep. It went deep inside and it just started, you know. Level 6 horror, a little more extreme, a little bloodier, a little more horrifying. So we have You've Lost a Lot of Blood by LaRocca. This is definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year. This one, we're following a serial killer, a compilation of his writings, his musings, some of his recordings, his poetry, and primarily it's the book he wrote. And it's just this horrific book, especially the outside pieces that are his actual, like what's going on in his life. Just, oh my god. Just some of this stuff is just terrifying, disgusting, disturbing, outstandingly disturbing, looking at the way that someone can see the world and seeing it through the point of view of someone who is a bad person, or like the surrounding point of view. So it's like we're inside of his mind, but not inside of his mind at the same time. And it was amazing. It was horrific. That's level 6. Level 7, this one actually gave me nightmares. And that is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. This one, I did not want to sit alone outside. I thought things were watching me. It's a compilation of kind of short stories. It's kind of like a composite novel. So each of the short stories follow the same kid, and it's different memories he has of what happened to him, that when he was younger, he wrote on this balloon that like they set off into the air when he was like in kindergarten or something, said the school's address, but then the person who got it became his pen pal. and it's horrifying because it's like, what type of monster got your note, you know? So yes, this goes there, and oh my God, just towards the end, there's this one story in the mall parking lot. Nope. Did not like that. Didn't like that at all. Didn't like that at all. It made me feel real weird and real bad. Yeah. Number 8 level of horror, none other than House of Leaves. Beautiful book. One of my favorite books of all time. Like a mix of things. So we're reading the manuscript that this guy Zappano wrote, and it follows him watching the Navidson report and like kind of critiquing and discussing about it. The Navidson report is about this guy who is a photographer, goes to move to, I think, Virginia or something, and this like remote town in this house, and the house has some weird stuff going on. It is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and they find a door that goes to, this one gets inside of your brain. Oh, and then it's also this guy, Johnny Truant, has found the manuscript that Zappano wrote, and he is writing in the footnotes as well. This one just like, it makes you feel like you were spiraling into terror. It makes you feel like your brain is going crazy. Like you are going into madness because as you watch others fall into madness, and the anxiety and the terror that you begin to feel and like staring behind you. And maybe it helped that when I like most of the beginning part of the book when I was reading it when I lived out on like this large property that I just lived in a camper in the woods, and I was reading it by a bonfire. So that probably helped to make fear. I hit the camera, whatever. Level 9 is It. This is a tome. I feel like most people know what it's about. It follows both the present, so it's like these kids as kids and them as adults as they battle what is known as It, or Pennywise the clown. And it's terrifying because he feeds off fear, and he creates that fear, and he really creates it inside of you too. And there's some just really disturbing imagery and stuff going on, and it's a clown, and I'm not afraid of clowns, but this is the epitome of terror. Like, this makes you not want to be alone in your room because you're like, is blood just gonna start pouring from my ceiling, you know? Like, what is watching me in the middle of the night? Who can I trust? That's how I feel. Oh my God, it's so heavy. Number 10. I don't even know if this is technically a horror book. It's a horror book. And that's American Psycho. This book actually made me throw up. I 100% puked. It was very difficult to read. It disturbed me to no end. It was the most disgusting piece of literature I've ever experienced. It is so disturbing, and it's about this man, Patrick Bateman, who is a serial killer. I guess you would call him a serial killer. He just kills women. No, he kills everyone. Okay, he's just a murderer. He loves to kill, and he kills, and he does it in really creative ways. There's just such creative ways happening here. Yeah, just the crucifixion scene. Yeah. The mouth stuff that happens. If you're not okay with animals, this isn't it. So that's level 10 is the most disturbing book I've ever read in my life. And I don't know if anything can actually top American Psycho. I read it for a class in college. I would have read it anyways. I had tried to read it before, but I was so disgusted by it that I was like, I'm not okay. Like, I can't do this. And then my class assigned it, and I was like, I guess we're reading this. Anyways, it's a social commentary on like wealth and stuff, and like perception of the self. Pretty interesting, but disgusting at the same time, and disturbing in level 10 horror. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to like it and be sure to subscribe, and be sure to give me one of those little abandoned house emojis, because I feel like we had a couple like haunted house or house haunting sort of things. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we did. Let me know what your 10 levels of horror would be too, because I kind of want to know what other people think. Or let me know if some of these aren't as scary as other ones to you, if my levels are not yours. Because I feel like it's such a subjective thing to say that something's scarier than something else. And that's an interesting discussion to have, is like what makes something scary to each person. Okay, bye.